We have a really fantastic panel this evening, bringing together three aspects of wearable tech. Health and fitness, which I believe drove the first wave, and we'll talk about that, represented by Esther Rodriguez-Villegas, co-founder of Imperial spin-out Acupebble. This is a device. I'm going to ask them each to pitch this pitch their ideas very, very briefly, as they would to a VC in just a second. But my take is a device that analyzes the body's sounds to detect illness. Is your product, Esther? Jack Hooper is co-founder of Doppel. We were expecting someone else from Doppel, but we're delighted to have Jack here instead. I've heard Doppel described in many ways, perhaps the best, a psychophysiology wearable for people who want to influence how they're feeling by using a tactile rhythm. I don't know who came up with that one, but I'm interested. Snappy, yeah. I'm interested to hear your take on it. And his passion is how Doppel's technology can change one's mood and how that can then transform the workplace. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And last but not least is Diogo Coutinho, Director for Product Innovation at Vinaya Technologies, the connected jewelry startup aimed at promoting emotional well-being. He's also, I'm told, an AI fanatic, and we have done, we've talked a lot about AI for this series as well. I don't know if any of you were at the Steve Ferber talk last year. Now, of course, we've got some big topics to throw around: personal data and privacy, ethics, the importance of design, which you'll see as well later when you take a look at that stuff, applications in the workplace. But let me ask you this to start with, and any of you just jump in. Apple Watch, and again, I'm wearing a layperson's hat here. Apple Watch, Samsung Gear, Google Glass. From where I'm sitting, none of those products are gaining that much traction that quickly. Is it fair to say that? And if so, why do you think that is?
I mean, there's lots of complex reasons why, but I think the key one is they don't have a purpose.
Okay.
Yet. There's the smartwatches are essentially just a new interface for your phone. I'm sure they will find their application. I'm sure they're relying, as they did with smartphones, on being a platform technology that then other people will create amazing uses for. Then there's fashion, there's battery life, there's all sorts of.
So I guess the question, and Esther, let me put this to you: whether a world in which we're permanently connected via wearable tech can ever really be compatible with privacy, and whether that actually matters at the end of the day.
Well, it's actually true. Does that actually matter in the sense that we are creating a medical technology, and of course, as a medical technology, we face issues that are even more complex than the ones that you could be facing here, despite the fact that we don't need personal data. So personal data, at the end of the day, is something that can identify a person. That's the definition of personal data. Physiological signals are not actually personal data. But because this is the interesting thing, I think people are totally uneducated about this. So I had once an interesting anecdote. It wasn't with Acupebble, it was with something else that we are creating in my lab, which is a brain monitoring system. And we were using some anonymized brainwave signals, electrical signals. And someone said that we had to go through an ethics committee because, and I said, wait a minute, we just have electrical signals from somebody's brain and there is no link at all to who this person was. And you cannot get from your signals who was that person. And this person told me, and we are talking of an educated person, yeah, but you could eventually create algorithms that are able to read what you were thinking at that point. Well, that's not true. Not really.
You don't think we'll ever get to that point?
No, I don't think we are ever
Steve
going
Ferber on AI might disagree with you.
At least in this life.
You disagree as well, do you?
In this life, no, we are not going to get to that. Eventually we might, but by that time, you know what, there will be no new laws, and this world we have other problems. Right. So no, we are not going to get there anytime soon.
Let me sorry to interrupt, but let me ask it this way: what excites the VCs and the people you've been pitching to about this product? Is it that? You know, what do they see? What these guys sitting behind the tables, the investors? What do they see as the big deal about this product?
The big deal is that it's a fundamentally new way to look at and think about technology. So it's not just saying there's a rational job that needs doing. It's about saying, can this, I mean, which is a form of, you know, human enhancement in a way, but it's looking at it saying, can you actually help enhance people and help them do what they want to do to themselves? So it's a different way of looking at technology, and it's actually looking at it from a fundamentally human perspective.
Let me ask you, you know, we've got 3 companies here, UK, you're all based in the UK. Is London starting to be noticed in the wearable tech world, you know, against the Googles, the Apples, the Samsungs, etc.? Is it a good place to be?
I mean, it's difficult to say. I think there's still, in London, in terms of, it depends in what sense. It's a good place in that it's in Europe, which is sort of from a fashion perspective, that's a good thing. Yeah. I think there are more companies that are starting here, and they are starting to get more funding, and they are starting to be noticed, but it's still nothing like the scale that's coming out of the US or in China as well, in terms of they're massively successful, even if they're doing things that are actually
at the other end of the scale.
Yeah, the other end of the scale. Very.
But I guess my question is, if you're going to set up a business like this, do you want to do it in the UK or do you want to do it in the US?
I mean, I think from a funding perspective, there's more funds that understand the challenges of hardware in the US.
I agree with that.
And that brings me on to something very interesting that you mentioned before we came in here as well, and this is aligning academia with industry, and how, I was going to say how easy that is here, it's how difficult that is here, right? Because it is still a real challenge, that, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that is something that Europe needs to work out, how to do better. I mean, Europe is not just here, it's in the whole of the continent. They need to learn from the US. So the technology transfer models in the US are different to what we have here. The universities claim much more ownership on inventions that they claim in the US, and of course, by organizations claiming more ownership, there is less motivation for entrepreneurs coming from university. It's not the case if you are a student, because students, as long as they have worked independently, at least here they own the intellectual property, but if by any chance you have been working as a paid member of staff, then they retain the ownership of the IP. So of course, I mean, if you are going to start a business, it's a very, very big undertaking. So you need to have a massive drive to do it, and that drive is attenuated in Europe by the fact that you don't have access to the IP you created to start with. So that's not the case in the US, which is why lots of successful business come out of universities, and you don't see that in Europe that much.